I'll be here. For you, those who don't know me, my name's Jordan Shockley. I'm a farm management specialist for the state of Kentucky, work in the agricultural economics department. Okay, so when we think about, for what you've heard so far today, obviously I'm here to talk about the economic implications of using ryegrass on breaking down the fragipans. What are some of the economic considerations you think of first when it comes to ryegrass and breaking down the fragipan?
Cost of the seed.
Cost of the seed. Absolutely. What else?
Yield increases.
Yield increases.
Yield increases, right?
Yeah.
Those are the two big ones. So if we think about this, some other considerations. So obviously there's cost, there's benefits, and when I always talk about this, I like to think about risk. Okay? The cost of the ryegrass. For one, it's establishment and termination. Okay? How we plant, establish, terminate. There's also a machinery cost component to this. Okay? And when I say that, I'm not necessarily talking about the machinery cost associated with establishment and termination. Yes, that is the case. But if we do have a yield increase, okay, so we're producing more on that acre, certain costs are going to increase just from that factor alone. Okay, think about hauling cost, right? You've got more bushels to move. It's going to take a little bit more time, a little bit more fuel, a little bit more labor, right? So while small, there is still that cost that we have to consider. What about yield decreases? Right? What if we can't terminate on time? Okay, and we have a delay in planting of our cash crop. How does that impact? Okay. Obviously the benefits that were mentioned, what we're all here to understand is that yield increase of corns or beans. But there's also risks associated with here, right? When I talk about output price variability, right? What I'm talking about there is the price of corn and soybeans. Okay? If the price of corn and soybeans are really high, which we all hope they were, right? Breaking down the fragipan becomes more valuable. Right? That extra bushel, or 3 or 10 or 20 or 50, becomes more valuable, right? Compared to low prices. So we need to consider that. Input price variability. What we're talking about there is just the cost of establishment and termination of that ryegrass, right? Seed cost variability, fuel price variability. All of those things we need to consider, and which will impact the overall economic value to this process. And then we have yield variability, right? We could have a yield decrease, yield increase more so one year than the other, okay? So we need to think about that. So, when we think about this process, and because we're so relatively been looking at this for a pretty short time, we have to establish some baselines, okay? What we're gonna look at now is just from an average perspective, okay? We need a few more years, especially in Kentucky, to establish a true economic value, but it could be a lot higher, it could be lower, but we gotta establish an average, okay? So what we're first gonna look at is yields from Princeton, okay? So we're gonna start with a base yield, corn and soybeans. We're also gonna assume a 50-50 rotation of corn and soybeans for the area, okay? We're gonna look at a ryegrass cost, so that is all-in cost at $36.50, okay? We're gonna look at that machinery cost, and this is on a per bushel basis, right? Just because we get a little bit more yield. Output prices at $4 for corn, which we wish it was there, and $10.50 for beans, right? Wish that was there too. We're gonna look at 3 scenarios. Okay, I don't know which stop you came from just now, but we're going to look at what we've seen in Kentucky so far as yield increases on an average basis. We're going to look at what Illinois has seen there on the Upton farm. Okay, and what would happen if we achieve that here in Kentucky? And then we're going to incorporate some of that yield variability and look to see what that value increase is by doing this process. Okay, makes sense? Any questions so far? Okay. So, to look at this, one of the simplest, easiest ways to do this is to outline what's called a partial budget. Okay, think about this as just cost and benefits, right? And we've outlined the costs so far. So we've got our ryegrass cover here. We've got our additional machinery costs, right? We look at the benefits. Those are the yield increases we've seen. Okay, this is the Kentucky example. That's a little bit lower on average yield increase due to breaking down the Fragipan. So you look at this, you've got a benefit here of $45 an acre from the yield increases we're seeing so far on average. Cost of $37.50 an acre. We net that out, get a value of $7.10 on the positive, so that's good, right? So from a decision-making standpoint, anything that's positive is a good thing. You want to do it. Okay? Now, question. Obviously, cost management is key right now, okay, when we look at this. So, how much more could you spend on that ryegrass cover and still be all right here from an economic perspective?
About $7.
$7, right? It's just that net benefit. So, about 43 bucks an acre. Okay. Obviously, if we can terminate that ryegrass at a cheaper price, obviously the value of this goes up as that price goes down. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on this? Okay. So that was with the 4 years of data that we have here in Kentucky, but many of y'all have probably seen so far, not sure yet,
We've already been to yeah.
So you saw the yields,
yeah.
right? So this is what would happen if we achieve those yield increases on average. Okay, same structure. Net benefit or gross benefit of $82.75 an acre. Cost is a little bit higher because we've got a little bit higher yields. Okay, but that value now is $43 an acre on average. Okay, so that's really good. Really good, especially with a low cost of establishing and terminating ryegrass. Okay, so this is where we want to get to, hopefully, with some more long-term data here in Kentucky. Again, we've only seen just a few years of data here, but this is over that 10-year span on average. Any question on this? Everybody should be smiling because this is all good news, right? Right? Increase in value. So, I'm going to present the data in just a little bit different fashion than what you've seen, probably. Did you see this graph at all yet so far? Same exact information, right? Same exact yield. It's just on a percentage basis versus total bushels. Okay? You can see that from your last stop, right? There was variability, right? Up and down, a little bit of loss early on, big loss or big gains towards the end, right? This is when I talk about this variability. So what I want to do is, if we see this in Kentucky in the coming years of the research, what does that look like? Instead of being on average, we want to incorporate this variability that we see. Okay, what will that look like for the state? Okay, so I'm going to introduce a concept, and maybe some of y'all heard this before. Has anybody here heard of the term time value of couple hands, okay? If you haven't, I've got a simple question for you, okay? Simple question. Raise your hand if you would want, hold on, this way. I'm gonna give you $10,000 now or $10,000 10 years from now. Raise your hand if you want that money now. Obviously, that's time value of money, right? You'd rather have it now than later. Why is that? You could leave here, take that money, and invest it, right? And make more money off of it, or use it and spend it how you want to, right? But there's also a risk, right? 10 years down the road, I might hit the lottery, and I might be on an island somewhere. You never see me again, right? You'll never get that money, right? So you want it now, today. You can take that $10,000 and grow it to a larger value. Same thing works the opposite way, right? Those losses now are a little bit more than if you had losses 10 years from now. Okay, so we have to reflect that variability in that. So, if we take that variability that we saw in Illinois and associate it with Kentucky, what is that value? Okay, so over a 10-year period, we looked at this, and if we can achieve what we saw in that graph of Illinois here for the state, that would have an overall value of $225 an acre. That's significant, really significant. Okay. That equates to return on investment. Who here's heard the term return on investment, right? 20%. That's really good. Really good return on investment on establishing and terminating ryegrass for breaking down the Fragipan. But we did some simulation, okay, where we took all different options with that variability in yield that we saw and looked at the impact on that value over a 10-year period. Okay. What this says here, these are all the iterations. If you look at that, there's really only a 3% chance or less that this process won't pay for itself if we can achieve that Illinois yield curve. Make sense? Again, there is a chance that you do lose a little bit, or quite a bit actually, but it's skewed up to the right, okay? So overall, okay, we've got data in Kentucky, both to show on average. That's a good economic investment. If we can get close to what Illinois has done on the Upton farm, even better. Okay, so all good things. And it could increase the value to $225 an acre. Any questions? Yes?
So this analysis is done with the fixed grain price?
Yes.
Okay, so how would that ROI change with more volatile prices?
We could have incorporated that in there. Obviously, lower grain prices, the value is going to drop, right? I mean, that's essentially. So we could have done, I would have had millions of different slides to as it is, right? But if it was lower, yes, it would be, this is set grain prices. But same thing with the cost, right? The cost was higher, lower value. So we didn't look at sensitivity analysis on if that dollar value for grain dropped substantially from $3 corn and $8.50 beans, right, that we're seeing now. So basically we just took a 5-year average. Good question. else before you go in the hole back here?